it's so true. I think as moms, we don't give ourselves enough credit because we're so busy pouring into our kids and making sure that their futures are bright, and we're so depleted.
All right, guys, say hi to Tammy. Tammy is one of our amazing strong moms, handpicked by our awesome coach, Jenna, for just basically glowing through this whole program. And I wanted you to hear directly from Tammy just about her experience and where she was and where she is now, where she wants to go. And so I'm just going to let you guys hear from her. So Tammy, really quick, give us a little background. And I didn't even prep you for this, but little background, kids, just the little quick story of your bio.
Okay. Yes. So I am a soon to be 51-year-old, and I'm a proud professional mom, I like to call myself, of a 20-year-old, 22-year-old, and a 26-year-old. So I have 2 college students in the house and one that is flying solo on her own. I moved to Alva, Florida 3 years ago from just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, where my kids grew up. That was my world. That was my life. That is all I knew. Moved to Florida to be closer to my in-laws and my parents, and have not looked back ever since. But came to Strong Mom through feeling high when I left Tennessee and on a new adventure for Florida. Landed in Florida, happy, excited for a few months. And then I went, oh crap, what did I do? I just left my comfort zone.
Yep.
And yes, so from there, I mindlessly was strolling along on Facebook, which I don't do social media, and I came across Strong Mom, and I was like, okay, what's this about?
Isn't that interesting? Like you really don't do a lot of social media?
I don't. I go on Facebook to kind of check up on my friends, but I don't really type things very often. Every once in a while, I just kind of browse through, and that's how I came across Strong Mom.
And here you are, for someone who doesn't normally, for someone who doesn't normally type things in. It was like meant to be, which I love it. All right. So where were you? But like, so you just weren't feeling well. You weren't, was it more mental? Was it physical? Where exactly were you before you joined?
Well, I would have to say it's mental. Definitely mental. I have lacked confidence. I'm realizing my entire life. I've never been an extremely confident person. I would say that I lived the Army life growing up. And so I kind of adopted the mindset of the middle child, kind of doing what's expected of you. You do as you're told. The military is very structured. I stayed out of people's way. I learned not to inconvenience people. So that's kind of how I lived my life for 50 years. And I reached a point where I was like, something's not right. This is not working for me, but I didn't realize what it was that wasn't working for me. So I dealt with depression in the past. I dealt with it. I felt myself kind of going into another familiar feeling of depression. And I said, I'm not going there. And this is about the same time I came across Strong Mom. And there was a question. I wish I could remember what the question was, but I saw it and I answered it for whatever reason. And then I had a little message from Jenna, and that's kind of what started the ball rolling.
Yep.
And she kind of chatted and asked me some questions, which was perfect for me because it made me think. And I was just like, okay, like something's here and I want to know what it is.
I just said to you before first record, I love these. I learned something about our strong moms, like little tidbits that I didn't know. That's so interesting. It's also interesting that you answered that question. And most people don't answer because they don't want to know, because they know if they start digging, you got to go deep, right? Like we just said on last call, the deeper you go, the faster you grow, and people don't want to go deep.
No, it's hurtful to go deep sometimes. And I think we don't want to deal with our deep emotions. I'm the opposite. If there's a problem, I want to know the why so that I can fix it.
Which is probably why you're freaking thriving with us, because that's what Matt, that a lot of people, sometimes they don't want to know the why. They want to just like a Band-Aid. That's what we say a lot of the times. Like, we don't just want a Band-Aid. Like, let's get to the root of the issue so we can let that stay behind us and move forward. So that's now that you say that, that's probably a huge reason as why you're thriving so much with us.
It could be. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Dig it. All right. So what made you talked about going on social media. Was there any specific thing that made you reach out, or were you just like, I don't want this familiar feeling that you had in the past?
So when Jenna messaged me, I was taken aback a little bit because I wasn't used to, I'm not used to social media and somebody kind of saying, hey, can I ask you a question on the side? Normally I would just ignore it because, salespeople and all of that. And I said, sure. So something inside of me was saying, hey, see what this is. So when she started asking me questions and they made me really think, about myself, I just felt like the questions were true. She was very authentic in her responses. And that's why I even continued on for a one-on-one call, because normally I'm very guarded and I would not allow myself to be vulnerable in that way with a complete stranger. Not me.
First of all, Jenna's freaking amazing. Like, just the most authentic human being in the world. But I also just feel like it was meant, I don't know. I just feel like it was meant to be, like, for someone to say, I never go on, like, I don't normally go on social media. I don't normally put my stuff in. I don't know. There was something that I know for a fact, Jenna doesn't respond to every single person. I know she tries to, but like, there are times where you just can't. So the fact that you guys had connected, she asked you a question about how you answered it. I don't know. Me. I love all that. But okay. So you've been with us. For how long have you been in our program?
I am on week 10 right now.
And pardon?
2.5 months in.
2.5 months in. And then where are you now? How do you feel now?
So starting off, I was not really going for weight loss. I knew that weight loss comes along with it, but I've been physically active my whole life. So I know how to work out. I know that part of it. For me, it was more, I was clueless on eating. I mean, for 50 years, I've been eating whatever I want. And throughout pregnancies, I've kind of been up and down, but I've never really seen it as an issue. So clueless on food. And I was like, okay, let's learn about this food thing. When you all started talking about mindset, I didn't even think that was going to be a thing for me. And I had no idea how negative I think about myself. I knew I wasn't a confident person, but the negativity that was always in my mind, that you're messing up, you're missing steps, you're doing this wrong. It was like day after day. And the more I listened to like the podcasts that, were suggested to me and the reasoning behind why I'm eating the way I'm eating, because you can tell me eat X, Y, and Z, but I'm like, well, what the hell do I do with it? I don't know what to do with this food. I'm so used to, frying things. So it was not the weight loss journey. It was more of the mindset for me, but then also just learning how to just eat healthy foods and how to put them together, which sounds so stupid, but I'm that mom. I'm very boring in the kitchen. I don't love it. I do it because I have to.
We're like the same person. See, Pinterest moms, I'm like, no, just give me the most, we said this on our call, and that I say this, it's beautifully boring.
Yeah.
Because beautifully boring is what is sustainable. It gets you results, whether that is working out, whether that is nutrition, whether that is even mindset, right? We journal, we do these things that over time aren't new and crazy and exciting. It's journaling, but and I don't think journaling is boring, but when you do the same thing over and over, sometimes people are like, oh, I need the next thing. We talk about the shiny fish, what's the next thing? But those are the reasons why we get results. It's the people who can stick to the basics and the things that are beautifully boring, have that solid foundation.
Yeah. And it's so simple. I mean, it really is so simple. It's not a quick fix. And the eating portion is really hard at first because you are told you can't have your candy bars on a daily basis. And believe me, I was the mom that was going from room to room looking in drawers at the beginning. Where are the candy bars? But by week 10, well, I should say 9, as far as the food plan goes, the meal plan and how I kind of went through it and went through my little withdrawals and detox. Last week, I think it was a week ago, I spoke with Jenna. I had reached out to her and said, I'm struggling with the eating part because I'm not used to eating this much protein. Am I full? Absolutely. But I feel like I'm now stuffing myself with all this protein, and I didn't realize that I wasn't eating enough before. I was basically eating like a rabbit. So she said, well, okay, so here's what we'll do with the protein. We're going to rearrange it a little bit. And she said, what can I do to help you along? And I said, just let me have a real hard-boiled egg and a little bit of almond milk to work with. That's it. She said, those are your 2 wishes? Yes. But I don't really want the other stuff now. I can have it if I want it, but I really don't. And I was a chocoholic. I really was.
First of all, you're like Jenna's dream. Like that's what you're asking for. Okay, we can work with that. The cool part is you know that candy bars will be there at some, they're coming back in, you just have to know where they fit.
Right.
But the fact that those were your 2 wishes, that was amazing. Actually, she did tell me now that I think about the almond milk, she did tell me about that. Like, we've had a lot harder questions than these. But at the end of the day, do you feel like you can live your normal life?
I do. Yes. Life is much simpler now that I know here are the foods I'm working with. Here's what I can do with the foods. Here's how I've planned it out so that I'm not thinking about it. It's just ready to go. I grab it, I eat it, I move on with my day. It's so much easier than my dreading being in the kitchen, trying to figure out what to make and all that stuff.
That's what I tell people when people are saying, oh, you eat, really healthy. I'm like, that's the easiest thing ever. Give me a hunk of meat, put some seasoning on it, give me some veggies, let's steam them. You got some rice, you got some potatoes, whatever that is, we'll just cook them up. To me, when you ask someone to bake like lasagnas and you're getting into although lasagna is delicious, but when you get into all of these crazy meals, I'm like, that's hard. I need simple. I need to use as least amount of brain space on food as possible.
Absolutely. And Lauren, one of the big challenges I had with my mindset of, even though I love fitness. I mean, if you would let me exercise all day long, I would do it. To me, it's my happy place. It's how I stress and decompress. But one thing I didn't realize about myself was when I go into a gym setting, even if it's like an amenity center, smaller gym setting, I can tell somebody else that nobody's looking at you. So don't be nervous about being in there. Nobody's paying attention to you. But myself going in there, I would have an issue with that. I'd be like, I know what I'm doing, but I just feel uncomfortable. And I had mentioned it to my 2 college students that still live with me. They've been athletes their whole life. And I had mentioned it to my daughter. And I said, I don't know how to go in the gym and just tune everybody out. And she said, Mom, you just got to go in there and be a boss bitch. Like, own it. It's your gym. You know what you're doing, you know? And I was like, well, I don't think that's in my vocabulary, but okay. And the following day, I went into the gym, put my iPod on or my earbuds in. I tuned everybody out. I was even dancing to my music. And then I started to do some I am statements while I was doing reps, balancing on one leg. I'm like, you know, I am strong. I am a boss bitch. I've got this. It was really empowering. And I was like, okay, I've got the mind. I've got the fitness going on. I've got the eating going on. Like, this is life right here. This is life. I can do this.
Two things. One, so it is in your vocabulary, which is amazing. And two, you just didn't know it wasn't in your vocabulary. Two, that gives me goosebumps, right? Because that mindset, and people will ask us what's different. And I'm like, we're not just telling you what to do. Like, your empowerment, anyone that joins our program, moms in general, like, if there's anything we can do for moms, it's empower them, not, hey, we want to tell, like, the focus isn't on us. Like, I love that we're guardrails. That's what I consider us. We're guardrails, we're guiders. But at the end of the day, when a mom is done our program, I want them to know that they're standing on their own 2 feet, shoulders back, and they just know they can go and conquer whatever they want to conquer. They can continue sustainably eating a certain way and knowing that they're going to get whatever results they want, right? Like, we all know that you're going to go to a birthday party and going to have that cake. It's going to happen. But if you know how to get back on, you know, the horse to still hit your goals, like, and to know that you're going to walk into a gym and be like, dance away, and know you're going to do that instead of like, that to me is everything.
It's so true. I think as moms, we don't give ourselves enough credit because we're so busy pouring into our kids and making sure that their futures are bright. And we're so depleted. And I was so guilty of that. That's why I say I was a professional mom. It was like, I gave everything to my 3 kiddos, which I'm glad I did. But I could have been doing this for myself all along. How I ended up with 3 strong, confident kids is beyond me, but okay, I'll take it. But they're also watching me now. They see it. They see it, you know, and they were curious about what I was doing. And I was just like, here's what I'm doing. And I'm loving it.
Yeah. And honestly, you taking ownership of yourself, your kids are in college. They're uber young. They're going to get a little bit older. They're going to have their own challenges, whether it's, you know, from getting jobs, whatever it's going to be going forward. And they're going to look back and say, oh yeah, I remember my mom, you know, she decided that her life was in her hands.
Right. It's such a good way of putting it.
Right. I think sometimes, especially when we always make sure we take care of other people, like, we just assume our life is in nobody's hands. Right.
And I know for myself, I was living for my kids rather than living my life. I made my daughter calls it an external journal. I don't know if you can see it behind me.
Yeah.
Like internal integrity, your most important meeting, bosses show up, little things like that, so that I can remind myself, like, you're pouring into yourself day after day. Everybody else is going to understand if you put them second. They know that you're important because they see you as important.
Yeah.
That as moms.
No. And one of the questions I ask all the time is, I'll say, okay, look at exactly where you are right now as a mom. So imagine your kid exactly where you are today. Right. And that's like, it's hard for us to think about, because when we say we're unhappy because we haven't been as communicative as we could been with our own needs because we're so worried about others, but yet there's things that are making us unhappy. whether it is unhappy with the job, unhappy in a relationship, because again, we want to make everyone else happy. So we feel like our needs aren't met, whether we're not happy in the body we're living in, whether we're not happy with the mind we're living in terms of confidence. But I always ask moms, look at your kids and imagine them exactly where you are at your age. Would you be happy for them? Because I think when we put it in that perspective, we realize, oh, I don't want to show my kids that it's okay to completely let myself go and my happiness go. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I wish I would have heard that years ago.
But you heard it now and you actually did. I mean, you actually did something about it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Again, we speak to a lot of people, and some people for sure jump on board. Some people jump on board somewhere else and they do take care of themselves. But there's so many people who just can't rationalize spending the time on themselves because it's just, there's that stigma. Oh, I don't want to be selfish, or, oh, I have to make sure everyone else's needs are met. And like Dave and I talk all the time, our kids getting to soccer, it's really important, right? Like, our kids have soccer practice at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, and for sure going to make them there. If we actually schedule ourselves and put ourselves on the priority list, we'll make it happen.
Right. Right.
We just never do that.
Right.
So I don't know. Thank you for sharing. I have one more question. What would you say to someone on the fence? So we're speaking to someone, they're on the fence, they're interested, sometimes nervous. Sometimes we're on the internet, so people get a little nervous with people on the internet, right? And I know they ask, are we real? One of the questions was, am I just a number? And I don't know how we can explain that by saying no, but what would you say to someone who is on the fence?
Well, I would have to say that I was one of those people that was on the fence. I was thankful that I had Jenna asking me the questions that she did. And then when I made the call, had the one-on-one call with James, I was like, okay, I think I can do this. And then when I had the call with Dave, I was like, yeah, okay, I can do this. Can I get back to you tomorrow? Let me talk to my husband about this. And then when I said yes, and my husband was like, why wouldn't you do it? Go for it. And I signed up and I was like, okay, I really did this. What have I gotten myself into? And then I was like, this is a good thing. I had good questions coming my way. They made me think. My inner self said, you need this. So I would say go for it. I have not had one bad experience in these 10 weeks that I've had. Not one.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for sharing, Tammy. I'm so happy to see you. Like Jenny used the word glowing, so I'm going to use it again. But just through the screen, just the way we get to watch our moms, and I know I wish it was in person, but the way we do get to see our moms, come out of their shells and share a little bit more and have, it's like a pep in the step or a twinkle in the eye when sharing, as opposed to, a little bit closed, a little bit nervous. But that confidence, it does radiate through. And she has mentioned, numerous times, she's like, man, Tammy used to never speak. And now all of her contributions to our group calls are huge because we all go through the same thing. I have confidence issues. I've constantly worked on them, but I've gone through many periods where I just lacked confidence in a lot of areas of my life. It's not uncommon.
Right.
But I think that is, to me, when you say confidence, like that's the piece to everything. Because if you have confidence, then you're like, oh, okay, I'll try that. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's when all the magic happens. Not everything is going to be, the best that you try, but if you don't try, you're never going to know.